how much of the marketing were you responsible for versus the publishing company?
100% of the marketing is on me. When I got that first initial round of edits back from my editor on chapters 1 through 3, it just looked like a red blob. It has opened doors for me that were previously, I wouldn't even say closed, but like slammed and locked in my face. I got the book deal the day my mom died and then had to start really, really quickly after that because I owed the manuscript and it was under contract.
Welcome back to the Sustainable Creator Podcast. We're here today with Sam VanderWielen. If you don't know her, you are in for a treat. Sam is seriously one of the most down-to-earth humans I have ever met, and I do not say that lightly. I had the privilege of being able to meet her in person last year at Kids Craft and Commerce Conference, which that is completely off topic, but if you're going, tell us, and if you're not, reach out to us because you should go, and I'm happy to answer any questions. It's amazing. But Sam is an amazing human being, and she also wrote a book that you may have seen, When I Start My Business, I'll Be Happy. Again, one of the best books I have ever read, and if you know me at all, I am a big bookworm, so I don't say that lightly. I got so much out of this book. We actually read it with our membership a few months ago, the break room. They also got a ton out of it. And today we get to chat with Sam about her experience writing her first book. She just reached one year. It's a 1-year anniversary. At the time of this recording, like a couple days ago, when you guys are listening to it, probably a week before. So huge milestone. I can't wait to be able to let you guys hear more about what the process was like. But welcome to the podcast, Sam. We're so happy that you're here.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Lyndon. Thanks so much for having me. Again.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
That's true. For anyone listening, we did book club with our membership. I mentioned this, but what I did not say was that Sam actually came to the book club call, which was just a really fun bonus for everyone to get to hear some of the behind the scenes of the process. So this will be a more public continuation of that conversation. I can talk words. But yeah.
Before we get into kind of like writing a book, do you want to just give anyone that doesn't know who you are or where you exist on the internet, just kind of who you are? What do you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sam VanderWielen. I'm an attorney turned entrepreneur. For my day job, I basically help online creators and business owners legally protect their businesses through contract templates and trainings that teach them how to start their businesses. But along the way, I've been doing this now for 10 years. I have scaled my two digital products to over $10 million now, which I cannot believe. And I've always only sold the same 2 digital products. So as you can imagine, a lot of people kept asking me along the way, like, how the heck are you doing this and not driving yourself crazy and not working so much? And I have a very, as you know, very like simple, streamlined business. And so when the chance came along to write a book last year, I wrote a book called When I Start My Business, I'll Be Happy, to show you all exactly how you can build this kind of business with ease and like still being present in your life. But also, I don't think that comes at the sacrifice of building a really profitable business.
Mm-hmm. What inspired you to write the book in the first place? Was this something you always knew that you wanted to do? Did it kind of come by happenstance? How did it happen?
Yeah, I would say there was both a selfish and a selfless reason. So the selfish reason, which I'm very honest about, is that I too am a bookworm and have read my whole life. And I think, growing up as a child of the 90s, we didn't have like TikTok or anything else. So I was reading a lot and playing outside by myself. And so when I was reading, I would look up to authors. Like, I think to me, authors were just the rock stars of my youth. And like J.K. Rowling, the fact that she built out like a Harry Potter world in her head, for example, is just like, that blows my mind that someone can be that creative. So there was a part of me that just really respected it, thought that it would be so cool to have a book on a shelf in a Barnes and Noble, right? Like there's that whole lore. But as I was building the business, it was really hard to have a place on the internet that you could contain everything that I've done, right? All talking about email marketing and funnels and all of the content secrets and whether you should be doing Facebook ads, but also not how to lose yourself along the way and how to work on separating your identity from being a business owner. Where was I going to put all of that, right? And so it felt to me like a book made sense to like just put everything I knew down in one place, and that's how it became a book.
I cannot even imagine the process. Just before we get into any other questions, real quick, can you share the timeline? How long did it take from ideation to okay, it's approved and ready to be published? Like, how long was that?
Yeah, so I would say like really from seed to flourish, it was 4 years, but I think it's worth telling people, and I'll explain maybe like the basics of the process because I think that a lot of people don't understand how this works, and there are a lot of misconceptions around it. But I also want to mention for people that I would say at least 4 years before the seed like really got planted and got started, I did want to write a book, and I reached out to a book agent. I had a call with a book agent from New York, and she told me that I didn't have, first of all, a good idea, interesting enough story, and I didn't have a big enough audience. And so I want to mention that because I imagine that somebody listening might have already been told that or will be told that. And I know I would have loved to hear an example of somebody who didn't just like come along and get a book deal the first time they tried. And it took,
Yes.
Mhm.
I don't think I needed to wait like another, maybe it was like another 4 years after that I actually got this, but I didn't need to wait that long. But there was a big part of me that was adopting that story that she had told
Mm-hmm.
me. And I
Mm-hmm.
just was like, yeah, really feeling like an imposter. So in, I would say 2020, I started working on a book proposal. So if anybody wants to write nonfiction, one of the biggest differences between writing fiction and nonfiction is that you don't write the book first. So a lot of times I'll meet people and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm working on my manuscript too," and I'm like, "Oh, you got a book deal?" And they're like, "No, I'm working on it so that I can send it to an agent." I'm like, "Oh, you don't? No, no, no. It's like such a waste of time. Don't do that." So the first thing you do is you write a proposal, and then once you refine this proposal, you get an agent, a book agent. And then once you secure the agent shops your proposal around to publishers and hopefully secures you a deal, maybe many, so that they can start fighting each other, which happens often. And that was essentially my 4 year process, was like writing the proposal. It took forever. Got an agent very quickly, got a big five book deal very quickly. And then it takes 2 years to write, edit, and publish the book.
Wow.
When you think about like the process of writing a book is a 4-year process. And if I think about like the whole thing you've been through as a marathon, I think a lot of people would think about it's published is the finish line.
Mm.
Where in that process that you kind of started to lay out for us is the publish date in a marathon?
Yeah, I would say it's not even halfway because I think what's really interesting talking to you both 1 year literally after publishing it is that it's not that different than what I've learned about selling products online, which is that if you create a good one and you make it evergreen, so it's not super timely, like I didn't write about something very seasonal or trendy,
Mm-hmm.
that it has a lot of life to it. And so right now as we speak, I feel like my book is actually getting a huge second wind. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've had a couple of like really cool opportunities come along. I just got to be on Tori Dunlap's Financial Feminist podcast. This
That's
like
awesome.
blew up the book, right? So a
Yep.
couple of speaking things. I've met the right people. I've gotten on podcasts. People like you have been kind enough to have me on. So, and this is 1 year later, right? And so like that's what I think a lot of people don't realize. So to your point, Linda, I think like when you're thinking of it in terms of a marathon, if you're investing in writing a book and you're thinking like, oh, if I just get to that publication date, then I'm good,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of work. And I know you weren't asking me about this, but I think a really interesting part behind your question is about how difficult it is to sell books and how
Yes.
people don't realize how much it falls on them as the creator, the marketer, the
Yep.
writer of the book. And
Yep.
so I think that's a lot of what's behind your question, is that like
Mhm.
I have to keep running because it is
Right.
my job to keep selling this. Yeah.
Really happy you brought this up because this is
Yeah.
something I wanted to touch on in a couple of ways. First, I want to just point out an observation I have had is how every time you share about your book and the way that you talk about your book and the way that you have consistently shared the process, like even before publishing, you did a whole series on like, this is the behind the scenes of what it's like to write a book, which really cool. It shows how proud you are of what you have created. And that stands out so, so much because I've seen other authors who go through the entire writing process and they launch and they do a whole launch party and all of that. And then it just kind of goes to crickets. And that is something that to me just kind of the contrast speaks volumes because you spent so much time, you should be proud of it. And the fact that you are sharing about it often is really cool to me. So one of the questions I had was on the marketing side because I've definitely heard different people say that when you go to work with a big publishing company or small publishing company, I don't know, that they want you to bring a list of ideas and accounts and ways that you personally are going to market the book. So I am curious, from your experience, how much of the marketing were you responsible for versus the publishing company? What did that look like?
100% of the marketing is on me. I mean, I don't know how different this was considering who they were dealing with, that I was like so excited to deal with the marketing part of it. I actually sent them a marketing plan and
I
proposal like
love
months before
that.
the book came out, and they were like, "Can we use this for our other authors?" Sure. So I think, maybe that changes when they're dealing with people who are professionals or writers that aren't in our world, but I'm like, I got this. Like, I don't need your team to tell me how to promote it on social media. Like, I'll take it from here. So I think there might have been a little bit of that, but it was definitely on me. And so I think something that would be really interesting for people to know is that in your proposal, there are a number of different sections in your proposal. Everything from the stuff you'd probably expect, which is like an outline of the book. You have what's called chapter summaries. So you don't literally write every chapter, but you'll write like in chapter 1, I will discuss X, the reader will walk away with Y. You do that for every chapter. So it's like a skeleton. You do write a handful of sample chapters. I wrote 3. And so they were nothing even remotely close to what ended up being used, but that's what you write just so they can get like a flavor.
Yes.
And so you do all of that stuff. But in the marketing side, this is where you can really shine, especially if you're somebody like me, where it was my first time. I'm comfortable with marketing, but I really was asking for somebody to take a bet on me. So you have to say all of the people in your network, exactly as you said, you have to say, like, I know Joe and Lyndon, and they're willing to have me on their podcast. And like, here's their Instagram handle, and here's their podcast. And you go through and you list that for everybody you know and everybody you're willing to make a connection with or whatever. So you do all of that. And then you can also say, these are other podcasts that I will apply to because I'm a good fit for it, and like this book's a good fit for it, but all of that. Another thing I know I've been learning from my famous book friends now that I did not know you're supposed to do is include pictures of yourself with famous people. So if you go to Craft and Commerce, for
Interesting.
example, and Pat Flynn lets you take a picture with him or whoever, insert person in our world here, you put that in your proposal and you're like,
Wow.
look, I know Pat Flynn, he'll help me with this book. People do that. So I didn't know that. What I did, since I didn't know anybody, I had no connections. Like when I sold this book, I had no connections. And so what I did was actually emailed my email list. And as you mentioned too, Joe, I chronicled this on social media. So I would post as I was doing this and saying like, hey guys, I'm ready to send out my proposal. If you're excited about the idea of me writing a book and you'd be willing to order it, write me a DM or just write like, I would totally buy that book, or, I would give them
I
prompts.
love
And I would do this to
that.
my newsletter. And then what we did was we took screenshots, and there were like thousands of them. We took screenshots and we included that in the proposal. It was like, look, we have all these
That's
people who are
genius.
ready to buy. Yeah. So it is on you. You have to build out your network. These are some sneaky ways that I've learned how to do that.
So, kind of like the follow up for me as someone that has not like steeped himself in the world of writing a book. If you have to do all your marketing and you do all this work on a proposal, what does the publisher do for you?
Yeah. So the traditional publisher. So I did go with the big 5 publisher. There are many different types of publishers you can go with. I had Hachette's the second largest publisher in the world, only behind Penguin Random House. So you're getting the prestige of them. You're getting the backing, obviously the quality of people that they have working there. I mean, my editor was world class. She's I believe the vice president of their department, and I still got
That's
her to be
awesome.
my own editor. Right. So like working with her, getting her eyes on my work, I learned so much about writing and editing, even how to structure a chapter from her. So there's all of that. Obviously, all the distribution is on them. So I'm not contacting, Target and Barnes and Noble and Amazon to get it on. So they're doing all that. They designed the book cover. They wrote the book jacket, copy. They wrote the copy that you see on Amazon, all that. I had input on all of these things, but they take the lead. They have people. They produced the audiobook in New York. So that was a week-long process. That's a very big, heavy lift. And they have really incredible professional engineers. Sarah, my audio engineer, was amazing and is doing some of the best audiobooks in the country. So they're doing all of that. They do try to get you, they have a PR and marketing department. They try to get you some of the larger, I guess, like spots that I couldn't necessarily get. Like they got me a feature in Forbes, which a lot of people pay for, as you know, but they got like a normal feature in Forbes, I guess. And so that kind of stuff is helpful. I also wrote a different kind of book. Like, I think if someone wrote a more widely read book, like you can work with them to get on the Today Show and Good Morning America and in the New York Times. But my kind of book wasn't that kind of book. Yeah.
Hey, real quick, you've probably heard us reference something called the Break Room a couple of times. It's a membership that we host for creative entrepreneurs, and we want to quickly break it down for you so you know exactly what we're talking about when it comes up.
When I was in corporate, I learned very quickly that work happens at my desk, but my career progresses when I would go to the break room. It was a place where I got to talk to people across all levels of the company. It's where I could ask for help when I was stuck on something that I couldn't figure out. And really, it was a place where I could be myself instead of being all buttoned up in front of clients. And when I left corporate and I joined Joe in entrepreneurship, I felt like I was missing that space. And that's what we built with the Break Room as a membership. It was a place for creative entrepreneurs who spend most of their time building other people's businesses to actually zero in and focus on their own businesses and talk to their peers that are solving the same problems that they are.
So if you want to be in a space with other cool creatives like yourself who are going to hype you up, hold you accountable, and push you outside of your comfort zone so that you can be the best version of you that you can be, check out the description for the link with all of the details on what is included. You can also start a 7-day trial, which gives you immediate access to the online portal where you can engage with other members right away, as well as come to 2 calls, including our weekly peer masterminds, which is one of our members' favorite calls that we host every week. It's a fun time. We would love to see you inside. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, everything is in the description for you. And now back to the show. I am very curious about, I have so many questions. You know me, Sam. I have a billion. But can you just walk through, like, what are the typical stages of writing a book first for anyone who just would like to know that piece?
There's so many steps that I had no idea. It was really wild to learn about. So it was also kind of funny and anticlimactic because when I got the deal, I was like, are they going to send me some sort of document? Like, is there like a special document that you're sending me? Like, where do I write this? You know? And then I emailed my editor. She's like, no, you just like start a Word document. I'm like, that's it. And so I guess I also thought there was some sort of like official pomp and circumstance that was going to happen. Turns out it doesn't. So yeah, so there's the initial draft, right? So that's really just you taking a stab at it. At least in my case, it was literally just them being like, we want to see the first 3 chapters by September 1st. And there's like no guidance. So you just go and write. That was probably the worst and the most terrifying months of the process because you just really have no idea. And the whole time you're writing it, you're like, is this going to be horrible? And they're going to hate it. Am I going in the complete, it's like driving a car thousands of miles in the wrong direction. And so I was worried. So there's that whole process. The way that at least my editor worked, which I hear is unique from other people, is that I would do it in chunks. So she would say, like, I want the intro and chapters 1, 2, and 3 by this date. I would send her those and she'd say, great, start working on 4, 5, 6, and 7 by this date. And we would barter back and forth with her sending back edits and me writing. And we went back and forth like that for like a year. Once you have that, you then have the full manuscript with all of her edits in it. And you have this kind of one opportunity to go through start to finish, edit it and send it to her. That took the longest to get back from her, obviously. And we came up with our first draft completed manuscript. It then goes off to a copy editor that's outside of the publisher. They work at the publisher, but you've not talked to this person yet. And they send back a ton of revisions that maybe your one-on-one editor has not picked up on. And it was also helpful to have an outside person read it for the first time. It was like, wait, you forgot about this, or you talked about this in an early chapter. It's redundant, like stuff we couldn't see because we were too in it. So she gave us all that. I finished all that. I think maybe batted back and forth a handful of times on the whole manuscript because every time there would be some new revisions. Once that's all done, you do what's called typesetting revisions. I have it in the closet. I should show you. But they send you the book like all printed out. And it's like the book is it's like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, but the book looks like what it would look like once it's printed. Cool. And so that is where you need to pay attention to all the visual components of everything. So now you're supposed to look for errors at that point, like if there's really a mistake or a misspelling. But otherwise, what you're looking for was like sometimes like the sentence would like run off the page by accident. There'd be like a weird gap. There was too much space between a paragraph, like that kind of stuff. So really looking visual. And I believe that was the last thing. Then they sent me what's called advanced reader copies. And we found a handful of errors in those, which if you make it in time, you have enough time to get them changed for the final hardcover print. Yeah. So that's essentially the process.
If I think about that process, is there just, is it a different type of editing that you get from a copy editor versus your editor, or is it just a different set of eyes doing the same thing?
Yeah, I think it's generally supposed to be the same, but maybe it's that each has their own strength. So like I felt like my editor was more pushing me, I would say, in a really good way, but pushing me to say like, explain this. What do you mean? I don't understand. I need an example here. Or this can come off a little privileged. Like she wrote that a few times of like, I don't like the way this sounds. This sounds a little like something, or she'd say like, I don't think you mean it this way, but this is how it's coming off. Like she would write a lot of that. I felt like the copy editor was all grammatical. It was more like the sentence structure was probably bad in my case. I don't know. And I probably don't do it right. I don't know. So I felt like her stuff was more like that because she didn't know my personality either. Whereas Nana, my editor, understood like I'm sarcastic, I'm dry. I was trying to make a
Yeah.
joke. So it was like she wasn't trying to take that away from me. She was
Mhm.
more like pushing me to be a she
Mm,
tries I think her role, that initial editor's role, is like the brand new reader, like the person who walks into Barnes and Noble, looks at this book, doesn't know me, doesn't even maybe know an online business, for example. That's what's really helpful about
right.
having
Mhm.
someone like that. Is like she was like, you're using words that are jargon, like you need to describe it, you need to. So yeah, that's what she does.
If you were to put an estimate, and I would be really impressed if you had a hard number for this, but if you could estimate how many hours you poured into writing, what do you think? Maybe even just on a weekly, if we just put it on a weekly cadence.
I would say that when I was writing the initial draft, maybe I was spending 8 to 12 hours a week. So it wasn't crazy. I also write really, really quickly.
Hmm.
And I was comfortable with the like crappy first draft idea of like, I just need to get this down. They're going to come back with feedback. She's going to ask me a bunch of questions. So I knew the further I went along, I wasn't necessarily spending that much time. It was taking me time to look through, like dig through, do some research, like pull out some of my resources, go back and look at my emails, like things
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, the writing itself doesn't, still to this day, everybody hates me when I talk about how long it takes me to write
Well,
my newsletter and stuff.
I
Yeah.
remember you making a comment about
Yeah.
this in your breakout session at Craft and Commerce last year because you taught about how your email process, the way that you approach your weekly emails, and someone asked a very similar question, and your answer was the same. Like, I sit down and I write, and then I'm done.
Yeah. I'm like, don't you guys, you don't want to know. That's what I always say to people when you ask. And I'm like, I'm not a good example for that because I'm weird. I also don't care. I mean, more in the email sense, I don't care so much about, oh, yeah, sure, it could have been better. I would have killed myself trying to make it that way. So it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's such a great skill set too,
Yeah.
though, because I can imagine how easy it would be to get hung up on, if I know that this is going to have so many edits and it is a draft, I still want to make it as good as possible. But it sounds like you went into it just giving yourself that permission, like, I know I'm going to get edits on this, so I might as well just knock it out and then improve from there. Like, that's actually a much more helpful approach.
Mm-hmm. I
I
wish
like
I
it.
would have done it even more, to be honest. Like, because once you go through the process, you realize how much they tell you. I also wish I
Yeah.
would have not. So when I got that first initial round of edits back from my editor on chapters 1 through 3, she sends it to you in a Word doc with like it just looked like a red blob. And I just hit accept changes because I thought you had to. I didn't know. I
No.
was like, well, she said it wasn't good. So like that's what it is. And so then after we were working together for a little while, she's like, by the way, you don't, these are suggestions. Like you don't have to accept them. And I was like, oh my God.
What a great editor.
Yeah. So I was like, I mean, sometimes you could tell it wasn't necessarily a suggestion, like I'd use the wrong word or something like this.
Sure.
But other times it was like she would rephrase how I said something. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, she knows better. And then I would put it and she was like, you don't have to accept it. Whoops.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Also, such a good just note in general. Like, you don't always have to accept other people's suggestions.
Yeah, very good. Very good note. But you know what honestly did start setting in? This is not that dissimilar to my newsletter nowadays, is like as I was starting to write the book, it really started setting in like, wait, people are going to read this. Like people I don't know. And then like, what if it's a lot of people? Then what do I do? And like, so
Right.
I started really getting in my head about that. And that was slowing me down as I went on. And then like letting go of the manuscript for the final time, like when they tell you no more changes after this, I'm just like, oh no, what if there's something wrong? What if I hurt somebody's feelings? Like yeah, it was hard.
Oh, yeah. All very real things. Was
Yeah.
there anything in those moments that helped you to just carry on with those thoughts or overcome them in any way?
Well, I think one thing was, really just being realistic about the fact, like, I have 66,000 people on my email list. The truth was that there were probably going to be a lot less people reading this book than my weekly email that I'm sending out, right? So there was part of that. The other part was that, like, I do always come back to what I would tell you if you came to me with a problem, or any of my friends. I would say, we are just so much harder on ourselves than everybody is, like, judging us from the outside, that what you think is not helpful is so helpful to the person that's reading it. And so I tried to just give myself the advice I give everybody else about that.
If I switch gears just a little bit and I think about this time period that you were in, like you made the comment the first time you talked to an agent, they said you didn't have a story to tell. So you spent 4 years building a business that has a story to tell. Now that you embark on the writing process, how do you make sure that business doesn't die while you put all your focus on writing a book?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and something that people just don't know about and don't think about a lot when they want to write a book. Writing a book is very expensive. So I got paid in advance. But one thing that people don't know is that you only get a third of that advance up front. The second third you get on the day of turning in the full manuscript. And then the last third you get on the day of publication. So it's spread out over many years, right? And it's like, it's not enough money to keep you afloat for that long. So for most people. And so you can't let your business go, or most people, I guess, unless you're in a financial position. So I felt for a while, especially really in the thick of it, and like I kept saying to friends, like, I feel like I'm running my full business, which, pretty busy. And then I felt like I had this whole business, or like separate business baby, going on with the book. It felt like these two really equally heavy things. And so it was hard. It meant taking really good control of my schedule, for one, of like being really focused on what days were going to be writing days. That's also probably why I didn't spend so much time. And it's also probably why eventually, I guess to your point, Joe, that eventually I developed this attitude of like, I'm doing the best I can. I also have to run this business. As you know, I was
Right.
also going through a ton of personal stuff. I had just lost both of my parents back to back. And so I was like, I'm doing the best I can. I have to get a draft out, and then it's going to have to be as good as it gets.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, that's a very big deal. I want to come back to your parents if that's something you're open to talking about.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I have a follow-up on the business side though, because I'm curious from a tangible perspective, was there anything in addition to the writing days and everything that really set you up for success to keep the business running like a well-oiled machine, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah, it was kind of funny because I was writing about the business I built. And while I was writing about it, the business I built was running so well and keeping me afloat. So it was like proving itself, in the moment. Having ads running is really helpful because that's essentially acting as my lead attractor while I can't be out there doing it organically as much. So that's essentially what had to take a hit, was like me producing so much organic content like I normally do. I might have stopped my podcast for a little while, if I remember, or like gone on like a season break or something like that. Um, and so having like those ads running in the background that was bringing people in, I'm so glad I started that process before I ever went into this, so that I had a way of people to funnel in. And then, I mean, just I always the thing I'm most thankful for in business is my email list, because that just has been like the reliable, steady backbone where, I could send out an email while I was writing my book and talk about the ultimate bundle, my like package of legal templates, and make quite a bit on any given day. And if I didn't have that, it would have been very difficult. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to like give advice to someone thinking about writing a book while running a business, are there any like ready things or milestones that you can concretely say of like, if you have this, this, and this, you're probably able to write a book at the same time?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, okay, on the front end, I just came back from a mastermind, as you know, and there were two really, really fancy agents there who I was talking to. And one of the things that I thought they asked me that was such a good question, and that I would encourage everyone listening to ask themselves, is like, what purpose do you hope that this book serves? Because that it tends to dispel a couple of people's like misconceptions about what they think this book is going to do for them. Are you writing a book that fits into your business? Like, is it sort of part of your funnel in a way? Have you always just wanted to write a book and it's about something completely different than what you talk about? Because then that changes my answer too, as they were describing. Because if it's going to fit into your business, you then need to figure out, like, does this thing, this topic that I'm talking about, like, does it have a market for a book? What's the unique angle? I'm sure the thing that has been written about before, but what's your unique thing? People definitely need an audience of some sort. Like, publishers are looking for audiences. I think it gets a little bit blown out of proportion where everybody thinks you have to have a gigantic Instagram audience or gigantic email list. Um, I have friends who have gotten book deals who have some of those things, not all of them. Like, I have friends who've gotten huge book deals that are not on Instagram at all, but they might
Yeah.
focus on their email list. So whatever it's going to be, I would focus on kind of one main thing so that you can go to the publisher and say, I have this audience, especially when you're trying to sell a book that's about the topic you're writing to that audience about, right? So, like, for me to go to them and say, I think when I actually just looked the other day when I submitted my book proposal, I had 24,000 people on my email list. So it's a lot different than now. But back then I thought that was the biggest email list of all time. But I told them, look, these are people who want to start a business. They might have a business, but they want to grow it. Like, they are ready for this book, right? So it's really connecting that for the publisher and making it a no-brainer for them.
Mm. I have one more business question. I'm sure I'll have more. But you mentioned about getting an advance and it was split into thirds. Did you get any kind of royalties after the book released?
Yeah, so when you go with a traditional book publishing deal like I did, the way that it works is that you get an advance in exchange for writing the book, and then you have to sell enough of your book to clear the advance. So they basically have to make their money back, and once they do, you start making like pennies on the dollar of the book. So it takes a long time. They only pay, I think, every 6 months. I'm only a year out. I have not gotten it yet because I probably am like just clearing my advance, right? So I have not got it. It is not a thing to do to make money. I hope people know that. I know a handful of people who've gotten like such big advances that it's helpful. But in those cases, I was thinking I was just talking to someone at the mastermind I was at who got an insane advance. But then I was thinking, but then you have to sell that many copies. And she's not even close, not even remotely close. So you're really getting this like big chunk up front. Yeah.
Right.
So it's a little tricky for that. The only other payment that I got was to do my own audiobook, which I was very excited about. So I'm actually a professional voice actor now, which I'm very
I love
excited
it.
about. Yeah, it's very exciting. I was so happy. I had to try out for it. And because they would have paid a voice actor to do it, if you get it, then you get paid. And I was so excited. And they bought me lunch when I was there. It was great. It was like the best 5 days of my life.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. They'll contribute towards some marketing things here and there. But that's it until my royalties start coming in.
Right. No, that is definitely a piece I never heard before. That is pretty mind-boggling, and also just goes to remind you, like, know what you're signing up for type of thing. And I do appreciate you saying, like, maybe don't do it for the money. Like, books serve a bigger purpose than that.
Yeah. Especially if you own a business, because then that's why I was saying to people to like step back first and be like, where does this fit in? Because if you can link it to something you're selling, I can make so much more off of what I'm selling than I would ever make on this book. So I don't really care. And I see it happen every single day. We have purchases every day where people are like, I got your book. My friend Joe sent it to me. And then I saw that you sell the Ultimate Bundle. I'm starting my business. I got it. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's how many books would I have had to sell to sell a $2,000 product,
Right.
Yeah.
I think for me that alludes a little bit to a piggyback question of, if it's not about like the money on royalties you're getting paid out, how do you think about, was this a successful book for you as an author, but also as a business owner?
I think of it because of people like Joe, honestly, who I've heard from, and thousands like her, and like hearing that people used it to grow their businesses, to start a business, or that it spoke to something. I mean, I've even heard from people just connected to like the grief part or the trauma part that I talk about, especially in the beginning. So the fact that that's how people have connected with it has made me really happy with it. I would say for me, it's just professionally been a huge success, as we were talking about before we recorded, that it has opened doors for me that were previously, I wouldn't even say closed, but like slammed and locked in my face. So I think that it has been really, really interesting to see who's willing to start talking to you once you have a book. It does add an air of legitimacy to something, and
for sure,
it gives you a cool angle to like pitch to podcasts or to speaking gigs, to be like, I have this book, this is a cool topic, can I speak? Yeah.
That's All of this is just incredibly fascinating. My wheels are turning. Okay, I want to come back to your parents because you open up in your book about your relationship with your mom not being the best growing up, and both of your parents passing throughout this experience, and those are very hard things to deal with that come with a lot of grief, no matter the relationship or the course of it. And I, one, want to just say thank you for being so open because that is not easy to write about at all. And two, it resonates with so many people because we all have things in our lives that pop up that we can't control, that just happen. And as business owners, especially, like there's a direct overlap in your life and the way that you run your business and how you show up, especially when you are the face of your brand and the founder and all of that. So my question is, how did you continue to show up through the writing process when you were talking about such vulnerable pieces? Did you have ways to be able to support your nervous system in that process? What did that look like?
Yeah. I think I just have to be honest with you and tell you that it was not good. It was not, it was
Yeah.
hard and it was not good. It was
Yeah.
very difficult. I had to ask for a few breaks from the publisher to say, I know I owe this to you by September 1st, but can I please have until October
Yes.
1st? Like, I'm really not doing well. I mean, maybe that was the way I protected myself, and spoke up for like my boundaries and things like that. I think honestly, a lot of it too is like just working on this mindset of like, this has to be good enough. And that's something that I've struggled with since the book came out, that I've thought like I was not in my best like when I wrote this. And so I almost don't remember it in a way. I feel like it would be like as if somebody wrote a book in like postpartum and then they're looking back on it and being like, oh, I hope that was good. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
now, luckily at this point, I've heard from so many people that have liked it that I'm like, okay, I feel okay that it was good
Right.
enough, that it did its
Right.
job. But
Yeah.
I can't help but feel like, oh man, I got robbed by that experience. Like I didn't, I felt so under duress while I was doing it because I got the book deal the day my mom died and then had to start really, really quickly after that because I owed the manuscript and it was under contract. And so it was like less than ideal. And then I was really angry about the fact that I was like, not at anyone in particular, it's just like the universe, of feeling like I had wanted this thing for so long that,
Mm-hmm.
and then like, oh, this is how it had to happen. Like I felt robbed of that experience. And then I worried that because I was going through all that, the book wasn't going to be its thing. And then it wasn't going to get the promotion it deserved and all of that. So it was very, very hard. It was a hard period.
I
Yeah.
can imagine. If you were
Yeah.
to go back now to yourself in that moment, just being on the other side, is there anything that you would say to her?
Like, you're incredible. I don't know how I did it looking back on it, to
Yeah.
just see that I produced that and be like, who cares what it like, if it was a children's book at this point, like I'm proud because I don't know how I did it. I mean, that's the
Right.
truth of it. Like looking back on it,
Yeah.
you're like, man, I was in rough shape. I don't know how. I don't know how.
Yes.
And to keep not only did I keep my business running, my business actually grew and has grown every single year. I mean, my business grew last year in 2025. My business did several hundreds of thousands more than the year before with having had to focus on the book all year. I'm just like,
Right.
I don't
Right.
understand how I did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Any time you have grief of that magnitude, it
Mm.
is hard to deal with and process on its own.
Yeah.
When you stack on top of it, writing an entire book while also running a business, I mean, that's any one of those things is difficult on their own. To have all of them at one time, just again, want to say thank you for sticking with it and showing up because I know that was difficult.
Yeah. It was really brutal. And I've actually been really surprised just lately. I feel like I'm kind of coming out of it a little bit. And lately I've been reflecting on the fact of like how much the book process or like getting a book deal kind of mirrors some like childhood wounds. Like, for example, because I want to write another one and I keep saying this to people, and then people are like, well, don't write another traditionally published book. Like go off and do your own thing or self-publish. And I'm like, no, I want to do it again. And they're pushing me to say, why? Why do you have to do it like
Mm,
that? And I realized that so much of it was like getting picked. Like I finally felt picked, by
yep.
someone. But
Yep.
then as soon as I got picked, I panicked basically the entire time I was writing the book that they were going to leave
Yeah.
me. So I was like, they're
Right.
going to at some point in this process realize they made a mistake. I asked for an extension. They think I'm an idiot. And they're going to say, please go. We'll give us our money
Right.
back and
Right.
leave. So I was
Right.
terrified of being abandoned the whole time. So it was like hilarious how much it mirrored, and then now I'm being like so hard on myself, so critical of like, well, I haven't sold millions of copies like
Mhm.
James Clear or, something like this. And just being like so hard on myself all the time
Right.
about it. Yeah. It's fascinating
Yeah.
what it brings up.
It's so real, honestly. I mean, I definitely have that same you feel like you have to prove yourself sometimes. I heard somebody say this. I don't remember who it was, but recently I heard somebody say maybe stop trying to prove everybody wrong and start
Mhm.
proving them right.
Mhm.
And that was a major unlock for me. And I really had to sit with it and think about what does that even look like for me? And how much power does that now give back so that I
Mhm.
can really stand in my own and confidently show up in a way that I want to. Which is, to your point, what you're saying too.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's funny because I think this all the time as let them be wrong. So that's like
Hmm.
always my thing is just like it's okay before Mel Robbins. This is like what I was always saying to myself. I was like pre Mel Robbins. I was always saying like it's okay. Maybe I didn't say let them. I would always say like it's
Yeah.
okay for them to be wrong. And so like I would just deal with it, be like it's okay for everybody to have their misconceptions about you or whatever. Spoiler alert, it only gets worse the more attention you get because then people come up with
Mm,
all kinds of, conceptions of you. But yeah, I really struggle. I don't know if anyone listening struggles with like controlling the narrative. Like if somebody has the wrong idea about me
right.
or the wrong idea about a situation, like I like desperately want to fix it. And so yeah, whether you're writing a book or building a business, that's going to be something you confront a lot. Yeah.
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 If I steer us a little bit to the second half of the marathon in like the
Yeah.
framework where like the first half is just getting the book made,
Mm.
like the second half is also the marathon part. And for you, getting to a year ago this week as a recording was like a big milestone. What did marketing look like past that point? Because I'm sure you started a little bit before it published or a while before it published.
About a year before. Yeah. Hmm.
And like if you would break it into like phases of what does
Hmm.
marketing a book look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I should send you my book marketing plan because it was really fun to
Honestly,
create.
if you're open to it, I would nerd out so hard on that.
It was so fun. I loved it. I was like, I just kept adding to it. But yeah, the way that I thought about it was like first I kind of reverse engineered and like backed up and thought about all the different like sectors of where I was going. So I had my own audience to deal with and I treated that like maybe its own little container. And so I thought about like, okay, I'm creating like a social media strategy for this, newsletter strategy for this. I did some ads right around when it first came out. And my podcast and like any other content that I was creating. So I had that all kind of structured of like, okay, I'll start however many months before. It's gonna be like all book, right? Going
Hmm.
the way that I tend to do things is like I tease like a little as I go. So I was documenting the process, but then it was like, when is this turning on to serious? Like this is all we're talking about. So that was a couple of months before in January. My book came out in April 15th. So I was planning to have it like hit the ground running on January 1, like all book, all out. And so that was all within my own network. Then on, more of like network of looking outside to other people, I had it all in sections. So I was like podcasts like that I could guest on, people who could mention me in their newsletters, I had an influencer category. So like people who I could send the book to and ask them to
Hmm.
share it on social. We had book influencer boxes that we created too and sent it out to people with like little
Those
gifts
are
in it.
seriously one of
It
my
was really
favorite
fun.
parts of book
Yeah,
launches.
it
Seeing the
was really fun.
influencer boxes, they're
Yeah,
so fun.
it was really
If
fun.
just in case you
Hmm.
were not going to share, can you share what was inside of those boxes?
Yeah. Oh gosh, if I remember. So I know the book was in there. I remember that. We got really fun boxes. We had custom boxes made. That when you opened it, it had the name of the book as well. So if people were like Instagramming it, they could see it. We included stickers. I believe we included a mug and tea. Like I wanted it to be like a cozy situation. So we were trying to go with like the feel of the book itself. And then I created a custom card. I don't think a lot of authors do this, but I created a card for the book to go in that gave them talking points. And then on the flip side, gave them hooks to use. So if they were going to create a social post or do a video, like these are the hook examples and just trying to make it as like foolproof as possible. So yeah, that was a big part of just essentially the other part of the marketing plan. And then just like adding tons of people as I came across them, some of it was like doing some research to find people or things like newsletters that I didn't know about, but that were great fits. Others were just like racking my brain, scrolling through Instagram, of like, oh, I know this person, and making a giant list and going at it one person at a time myself.
That is phenomenal. I love your brain. So cool.
I love
Did
marketing.
you think about this as so like you did all these steps, you launched, and then you said this is kind of an evergreen thing for you with your book, and you're selling a bunch of copies like right now, a year later. Do you think about this in loops if you go through like a similar process every couple of months to keep the momentum on your book?
Yeah, because I can't afford from a business perspective to do this. And like, it's kind of silly at this point. It's like, I'm not getting paid for this. I'm just trying to basically sell it well enough so that it sells well enough so that I can continue to write more books. That's the truth of the situation at this point. And so, I thought about when I sat down to do my marketing for this year, I was like, well, it's the 1 year anniversary. I don't have any other sales going on. We just came off a huge launch in February. And so I was like, I'll just focus on this for the whole month of April, but then I have to switch back. So as soon as April 30th closes, it's not that I won't ever talk about it, but it's not like this sprint that I'm in right now. I think the way that I like to look at marketing though, Lyndon, is like, I have two big sales per year, one in February, one in September, and then I have a little baby one in June. And what I always do is like the day that sales end, I turn back to newsletter growth. So I'm going back into creating evergreen content that leads to my newsletter and building the list back up and getting new leads so that the next time I have a sale, I have fresh people there. But sometimes there's so long in between that there's like a weird lag time. And so I will look at that, and I marked off some other times of the year that I was like, oh, that'd be a good 2 week sprint about the book.
Mm.
Or like, let's
Uh-huh.
do 2 weeks around the holiday because people could buy it as a gift, or something like that. Let's do 2 weeks at the start of the year because there's this like new year, new you thing. Let's do 2 weeks in September because it's like back to school energy. So we kind of planned it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I know you shared recently that you take a copy with you everywhere that you go.
Everywhere. Yeah.
What is the reason behind that? Do you end up giving that copy to other people? Is it for marketing purposes?
I'm shocked that people don't do this actually. It's really funny. So there's so many reasons, Joe. So one is because it gives me a time to photograph it and take
Yes.
video in cool places. I mean, I have a weird sense of humor too, so I've also done like stupid things where I like leave her like sitting somewhere and I'm like, look, I found her. So I just like I think like anything you can do just to like bring some energy and attention to it. So there's that. But I mean, honestly, just getting like more and more B-roll of the book itself, like out in the wild, as I say, is great. I have a whole folder for it. The way that I organize my social stuff is that I just take B-roll every day while I'm out. And then I have these folders on Dropbox, and I have general folders by the month, but I also have them by topic of like book, fitness, food, whatever. And so I will upload it to there. That way, when we do go to do a 2 week sprint in September, but I haven't been anywhere doing anything with the book, we have all
Yes.
this fresh B-roll to use. So that's a big part of the reason. Other times I do leave it in little libraries, or I'll leave it at like a coffee shop or a co-working space or something like that, or a hotel. I've left it
That's
there.
cool. I
Yeah.
really loved how you shared that because I don't think I
Yeah.
have seen anyone else share that. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
other authors don't do that, I
Yeah.
suppose, but again, it goes back to my perspective on it shows how proud you are of writing this. And to me,
Yeah.
that just stands out a lot. Also, a quick nerdy comment on your B-roll organization. I love that you have it set up by months as well, because I also try to organize our B-roll into folders. But I'd never considered the months, and I can see how helpful that would be for seasonality, because then you can go back to, okay, we're in September, but we don't have any fresh content yet. Let's pull from last September. That's
100%.
genius.
Because when I started working with my social team, they're in Florida and so they don't have seasons. And so when we first started working together and they would make content, it would be like 20 degrees here and they'd be showing me like on the beach in a tank top. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And I just never clicked for me. So that's really what inspired the idea. It's also really helpful when you need to find something, when you're like, oh, I need that craft and commerce video. And I'm like, oh, well, that's June. Go here.
Right.
There it is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I bet.
You made the comment that you are thinking about writing another book or would like to. As you think about now, you're kind of symbolically, you've closed a chapter on this book. What do you think about doing differently with the next one?
I would write a book. I would think a lot more about the positioning of a book up front. And so I thought this time about writing a book that I knew my people would want to read. Whereas this one, I think I'd be like, I've already written the book that my people would want to read. So now I would write a book that maybe expands to a new audience and brings in like new people that would be more widely available, that would be more shareable, right? That people could share with all different kinds of people in their life that maybe are working corporate or 9 to 5s, like don't have to be entrepreneurs even. So I would think a lot more about that. I would think a lot more about this idea of like, where does this fit in? Like, what are you hoping to this book does for you? And actually, one of the agents at the mastermind this week asked me, can you see yourself talking about that topic for the next 8 to 9 years? And when he asked me that, I was like, oh no, I don't want to talk about that topic for that long. So that was a really interesting like reframe of, oh
Right.
yeah, this is for the long haul. So I would think about that differently. Yeah.
Wow, that's such a deep question, but so impactful. Okay, I have a question 1 year later. As we start to wrap up, we'll move into lightning round next. But now that it's been a year since the book has been put out into the world, how are you celebrating?
Man, yesterday I was so lucky to be with friends yesterday in online business, and people were so sweet. They were like, they cheersed me at breakfast, and like we went to get coffee and everything. It was just really fun. Honestly, celebration these days looks to me like sitting in the enoughness of it, I would say. I'm not, for one, I'm just not really somebody who would like buy a whole lot of things to begin with. And like I'd probably just like treat myself to some food thing, which I'll probably do this weekend. but no, it'd be more for me and just being like, oh, you see that? Like, do you see how safe you feel? You feel how like it's enough? Like that's cool. Like sit in that feeling. And that's kind of what I was feeling yesterday, is like, this has been really fun. And like I don't know what else is gonna happen from here, but this has been really fun. Yeah.
It's huge. I love that so, so much. Okay, let's move into lightning rounds.
So, given that recording this in the background of your book, how many of your book do you have in your house right now?
Just 2. That one and the one on my desk. That's it.
Oh.
I'm actually kind of surprised. I wasn't sure if you would have more.
No, we've sent them to everyone. And funny enough, just this morning, I made a huge connection that I've been working on trying to make. And I DM'd him and said, can I send you a copy of my book? And he said, yeah. And it gave me his address right away. And so I texted my marketing manager, Michelle. I was like, can you mail him this like today? And she's like, I don't have any more copies of the book. I was like, go to Barnes & Noble, buy the book, send it to him, get it out now.
That's amazing.
So I guess we have to re-up.
That's so awesome. Okay. You mentioned earlier that you also like to read. What book are you currently reading?
Theo of Golden right now. Me and everybody else, I think. Have you heard of it?
No, is it? So maybe I'm like out of the loop on this.
Out of the loop on fiction.
Yeah, okay. Is it fiction?
Yeah, it's fiction. Yeah, that's pretty much all I read every once in a while. I'm right now reading Meditations for Mortals by Oliver Berkman. So it's my nonfiction read. It's about time and how we spend it, and that's really good. Highly recommend. But yeah, Theo of Golden is the fiction I'm reading.
Okay, noted.
What is a typical day in your life?
Yeah. So I feel very defensive about this because I am a morning person, because people are always like, you're not a morning. No, I am a morning person. I just like to have my mornings. Like I'm not the person who rolls out of bed at 5 a.m. is like running a marathon. I wake up early, but then I'm like, I want to sit with my coffee. I like to like have I read Substack. That's what I love to do in the morning. Nothing to do with business. Nothing. It's like food, travel stuff. I make breakfast. I'm really intent on making my 30 grams of protein for breakfast these days and eating before coffee. So I'm doing that, and usually then taking some sort of walk or going to the gym, like doing my movement. I try to hit the desk by like 10-ish, to be honest, and then I'll work until lunch. I always take a long break for lunch where I eat a full meal. I will walk. I will sit outside. I'll do something. Then getting back to work until usually like 4 to 5 when I walk Hudson, my dog. And we live in the best neighborhood ever, and it takes us like 2+ hours to walk because everybody just stops and talks to each other. And it's awesome.
That's awesome.
And so we will usually do that until we come back to make dinner. And right now we're watching The Traitors. So I'll watch an episode of The Traitors, and then I'm in bed early and doing my sleep meditation before I go to sleep.
Nice. That sounds like a solid day.
I was going to say, it feels boring when you like lay it out, but I'm not sure.
No, that is amazing. Yeah. Okay, who are you learning from right now?
Oh, I would say everyone in my mastermind right now. I'm in this mastermind called Aspen. There's only 18 of us in it. But you know what's really interesting is that I think I'm learning from the men in the group, because it has been really interesting for me to have my own stories reflected back to me by a group of men who are like, what? Like, what? Why are you waiting? Like, why don't you just go do it? Like, all the stories that I'm coming up with in my head of like, oh, I can't do that until this happens and this happens. And you're like, no, just do it. So I'm learning for them and like about what's possible, how much they just don't give a ish about asking for what they want. It's been really eye-opening.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like someone else said it.
If you're listening to this audio, I was laughing through that entire thing because this is a really common thing we hear from our coaching clients is like, Joe will talk about their feelings and then I'll be like, what are you doing?
Yep.
And so it's just interesting having the balance.
It's a good combo.
That's why I joined the mastermind, honestly. And somebody at the mastermind yesterday was telling me that she saw a girl on TikTok who went out and got like a very bro therapist because she literally wanted to bring him all her problems and have him just be like, why? Just stop. Like, just don't do it, you know? And that's pretty much how it goes. Yeah.
I feel like I've seen some of her content. It's pretty funny.
She said it's really funny. I haven't seen it. I'm not on TikTok.
I'm not either. I miss so much. But anyway.
We get the news from other people. It's fine.
Right.
Okay, so the last question we have is, do you have any questions for us?
Yes, I want to know from each of you individually, what's something that you're doing offline that you're loving right now?
There's a local gym that I've been going to, and I absolutely love them. They have mini trampoline classes. Have you ever taken one of those?
No, but it sounds amazing.
It's a blast. Yeah. Also a workout, so don't underestimate it, but so much fun. That has really been bringing me joy lately. Very offline. I mean, you're not on any device for close to an hour, but you're just moving your body and having a good time, and that's been a ton of fun.
So if I go on a technicality of offline, I have recently been getting into like weight pack walking, and in like the last 2 weeks I've probably done the equivalent of like 1,000 pages of novels in audiobooks.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that counts. That's fine.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for just being so open about things. I have a ton of notes myself. I'm sure everyone listening has even more. So appreciate you a ton. Where can they come connect with you online?
Yeah, come over and connect with me by getting my weekly newsletter called Sam Sidebar that 66,000 of your online business peers get already with my best marketing advice. You can just head to samvanderwielen.com/newsletter for that. Come over and listen to my podcast on your terms. I post episodes weekly talking about online business growth and mindset as well. And you can get my book, When I Start My Business, I'll Be Happy, anywhere books are sold. If you're someone who's on Instagram, I'm just at Sam VanderWielen. Send me a DM, say hi, let me know you heard from me here so I can say hi and thank you.
Sweet. We'll have all of those links in the show notes or description for you guys. So check them out there. Thank you, Sam, for your time. This has been incredible. You're just a wealth of knowledge and just a really fun human being to be around. So thank you very much. Thank you guys for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor and share about it on socials, tagging both Sam at Sam VanderWielen and us at Joe and Linden or at The Sustainable Creator. We would love to see you listening. And if you want to take it a step further, we would love it if you leave a review. That would really make our day. So thank you guys. You're the best. Appreciate you sticking around to the end, and we will see you next time. Bye.